what we want is for our physicians to reflect, the population that we serve. So that would really be the goal. My disclosures are essentially not relevant, although there may be a little bit of a potential conflict at the end, and I'll show you that when we get there. So we're going to just define briefly what we're talking about in terms of, goals for diversity and what gender and underrepresented minority in urology is. Look at the status of females and URIMs in academic urology using, in part, the urology census data, but then also supplement with the AAMC data to look at, in general, diversity, promotion, and pay inequity in academic U.S. practice, and then take a little look about the African American females in academic urology and what the initiatives are at this point. Okay, when we're defining what we're looking at, underrepresented gender, of course, in this field would be female. In other fields, it's male, for example, like OBGYN or pediatrics. Underrepresented minority, as defined by the AAMC, is underrepresented in medicine. And so there are 4 groups that fall into that category: Blacks, Mexican Americans, Native Americans, and mainland Puerto Ricans. Okay, so I'm going to interject a little bit of my history, since it does play a role in this. So everybody has a beginning. This is mine. I was born in Baltimore, and my parents and my older brothers. My first mentor was my father, who was an OBGYN. He was chair of OBGYN at Howard University. So I was very lucky to have him. So I was going to be a doctor from, age 6, so very early. So fast forward to when I decided to go into urology. Of course, he was a little bit surprised since he expected me to go into OBGYN, but I went into urology, and this is the residency program at UT Houston. In 95, and at that point, Ed McGuire was the chair. Joseph Corriere, some of you may recognize him as a former president of the AUA. The other female in this picture is Helen O'Connell, and she is actually the first female to be trained in urology in Australia. Actually, in New Zealand, we had the first female trained in New Zealand as his fellow the following year, but she is in Melbourne, and she's currently the president of the urology of Australia and New Zealand this year. Fast forward to last year's match, and we see that the things have really changed, and the match results came out today. I think most of you got a communication on that as well. So we have a lot of women, a lot of minorities. And if we look at the match statistics, actually females were matching at a higher rate than males, and that was also duplicated this year. The match rate for females was 81%. For males, it was 75%. So let's look at the total number of practicing urologists that are females, and that has steadily increased now to about almost 11%. If we looked at the practice patterns, roughly 21% of academic urologists that reported or that answered the AUA census are female. When we switch gears to Black urologists in the workforce, that has remained very flat. And for some reason in surgical subspecialties, it's very similar to what we see in also neurosurgery and orthopedic surgery. But in order to increase the number of, as an example, Black urologists, it's beneficial to also have faculty members as role models. So let's just pivot to the AAMC data, and this is not specific to urology, but it does demonstrate that we see that there are a fairly constant but a higher percentage of Black female faculty in every rank than males. But the disturbing part is that as we go up in rank, there is an attrition rate. If you look, there's a decreasing percentage, and the Black females are in the darker purple, and the males are in the lighter purple, and so that decreases as we progress from assistant to full professor. And this is just a depiction showing the actual recruitment or new faculty hires, and when you look by race, there's a higher number of black female faculty who are recruited as a percentage if you look at all races. However, when you progress through 10-year outcomes, we see that that black faculty and also Latinx faculty have the lowest proportion of faculty promotion. And that black males have the highest proportion of faculty leaving academic medicine for a promotion failure. When we look again at faculty exit, the highest is among black female faculty members, and the percentage of the exit is higher than that related to a promotion failure. So that begs the question then, what are in general the reasons for retention failure in female faculty in general? So promotion, and there are perceived inequities in promotion decisions. Compensation, and we'll look at that. Isolation, insufficient mentoring, and then scheduling flexibility as it applies to parental responsibilities. Now, promotion dynamics, could be a separate talk, by itself, and it's become increasingly complex. It used to be that you just had, full-time like research faculty versus clinical faculty. Now we have, multiple tracks to take into account areas of different interest, including, educator, service, or institutional service tracks. What does become difficult is when you're on the promotion committees that the criteria for promotion at each one of these tracks is not particularly well defined. And so if the applicant has not been appropriately mentored throughout their time in rank, and their chair letter does not appropriately display how they have progressed through the rank, then you can often have problems. And again, it's also variable by institution, and institutions have variable support structures. So, one may be better than the other, and that may be responsible for someone not being successfully promoted at one place and being able to be promoted at another. But then there's also, levels of difficulty that are assigned to, different institutions. You don't need to read through these gender pay equity facts. We're going to go through this in a graphical way instead. So if you look at, this is looking at, different roles within the medical school, whether it's, basic science, clinical. Let's just look at the clinical. And if you look at those who are in clinical departments, that, women are paid less than men just in general, and then we'll go by rank as well. But this is also, divided by race, that the women faculty are paid less than men. And if you look at it on a dollar, with the standard being white male as $1, then women and when you separate by race are being, or even, well, if you look at that white male as $1, but then you divide by race as well, that women in each racial group or ethnic group are being paid less than their male counterparts in different departments and specialties. And that also holds when you're looking at leadership roles, that women chairs and chiefs are paid less than their male counterparts overall and by race and ethnicity. Now this is particularly interesting. So if you look at women, for example, women associate professors, they are in general paid less than male assistant professors. So that's a little bit disturbing, but fortunately, at our institution, I think it was 10 years ago, Colin, or so, that they did a complete revamping of our pay structure so that it was normalized by rank and by years in service, so that you don't have these inequities of people in lower ranks, being paid more than people who are in the rank above them. I got like this raise, and I'm like, what happened? What happened? This is great. He's like, oh, well, that's because the pay structure needed to be corrected. So, and you would think that maybe in departments that were primarily female, say, like this is OBGYN, that women that there would not be this pay inequity, and then that's not the case. The male faculty are still paid more than female faculties in OBGYN, and they also have this graphic in the AMC data for pediatric faculty as well, and that's also the case. So, what about in urology as an example? How successful have we been in kind of weathering some of these promotion and retention storms that really, it's pervasive. I mean, it's all specialties, not just surgical. So we're not immune to that situation. So let's just do a little bit of number crunching, and then as I was going through these slides, I realized that I'd miscalculated. So I think we're doing much better than I thought. So again, looking at the data from the AUA census, that 21% of female faculty respondents were female in general. And we don't have rank data specifically for urology, so if you look from the AAMC data that roughly 13 to 15% of female faculty get to the full professor level. So let's look to see how we're doing, and actually we're doing better than I had imagined. So if we have roughly 682 female academic urologists, and if we say take the lower number, 13% are full professors, so that leaves us with 88. Now, you can look at this two ways. If you look at the percent of African Americans or black urologists, it's about 2%. So if you use that number, then that's roughly going to give you a number of, you would expect to have 2 professors at that rank. If you look at the numbers in the population, then you really should have more like 10, because the population is like 12 to 14% blacks in the population. So if you take that, what we are striving for would be 10. What we would expect based on the number of black urologists would only be like 2. So I completely miscalculated that. So really, we would want to have 2. We would want to have 2 based on what we have, but if you look at the population at whole, it's 10. So, how many do you think we have? How many say we have 5? 3? None. Well, there's at least one. Okay, so let's show you who those are. Carol Bennett, she is at University of Southern California. Cheryl Lee, chair of Ohio State Urology. Me. And then Isla Garraway, she's an MD PhD at UCLA. So of these, 3 of us have something very much in common. And what we have in common is that we were all mentored by Ed McGuire. Now, Ed was highly intuitive in a lot of ways, like the leak point pressure, for example, but he was a master at identifying people, providing opportunities, and guiding them. So, and it's odd that you have 4 full professors in all of urology, and he was instrumental, in developing 3 of them, which really means that, this really shouldn't be a problem if everyone was doing similar things. So this is Carol Bennett's story is, for those of you who are interested, memorialized in urology last year. She's actually the first black female to be board certified in urology, and her story is in that article. So she went to Georgetown University Medical School, started her university at Michigan, and at that time, Jack Lapides was the chair. And when she was a chief resident, then Ed became the chair of urology. And as many of you know, his specialty was really neurourology. And so he mentored her through developing neurourology more so at University of Michigan. And then eventually she went to USC and then became head of the Rancho Los Amigos Rehab Center in terms of their department of urology. Cheryl Lee, as many of you know, is chair of Ohio State. She was going to go into general urology in Michigan, and Ed asked her, said, what about urology? So he encouraged her to go into urology. Continued to mentor her through her residency. So let's think, how do we compare to other surgical subspecialties? So let's look at the residency percentage, and I think ours is maybe this is the 2018, and I think we've progressively increased, so we're getting closer, more like 28, and getting closer to 30. And actually, the colorectal surgery looks high, but it's really that's really a fellowship, but it is ACGME training, so it's classified as a residency. But if you utilize them, though, we're somewhere in the middle, and orthopedic surgery still has a long way to go. So if you look at kind of the worst case scenario, which is orthopedic surgery, and then also keep in mind that there are, we have 12 or 13,000 urologists. There are 23,000 orthopedic surgeons. So how many Black female orthopedic surgery professors are there? There's one. Her name is Valerie Lewis, and she's chair of orthopedic surgery at MD Anderson. So in comparison, we look much better than that, considering the size of, or the number of orthopedic surgeons that there are in the country. So the issue really is that and this has been discussed, long before even we were focused on diversity, that, the questions about, in terms of the pipeline, if you're looking at the U.S. population and then going through the number of people who would potentially then end up as urology faculty, through undergraduate level, through residency, medical school, residency, as you can see, the percentage, of course, drops and drops and drops. And how do we intervene to increase the numbers of all, minorities that are underrepresented? And as we've seen in our publications, AUA News and at the AUA is, interested and focused on initiatives, some of which are a couple of research initiatives, LEAD, that supports urology residents from racial and ethnic backgrounds to promote urology research. And also this is a possible conflict because Boston Scientific has partnered with Urology Care Foundation to sponsor underrepresented student for 1 year to do research with a mentor. And so that also fosters an interest in academic medicine. Now, through COVID, that actually helped facilitate social media sources for improving the ability for residents and students who are interested in urology to connect with urology residents. There's Urology Unbound, and this was actually evolved from R. Frank Jones, which is the Minority Medical Association. Some of the students in there, her name is Chanel, actually kind of a cousin of mine, and I inadvertently influenced her to go into urology, which means you really can influence people without even realizing that you're doing it. But now she's gone through urology, did FPMRS fellowship. She's now in practice in Atlanta, Georgia, and she started this organization, and she's gotten funding from various resources, and they have, for example, in this year's match, they helped some of the students that applied in terms of helping them with their interviews, reviewing their applications, going through mock interviews, and the fact that we're doing so many things virtually now facilitates that as well. Latinx, similar story, and they have a physician spotlight series that really helps reach students and give them role models, even if they don't have one that's geographically convenient to them, that this virtual platform makes that possible. Urologists for Equity, also resources to link people who are interested to help them find the pathway to urology and find more mentors. So in conclusion, urology is subject to all the forces of other subspecialties in terms of retention and recruitment. In the example I gave, we've seemed to do a better job in terms of not losing people to those forces. And the success stories that we have been dependent on, the sponsorship of key individuals. But now that we also have development of social media groups, this can really help, roll this out to a larger group of people and with very little cost. And so, we all can be mentors even at home. Here's our 2 daughters, and the little one says she's going to be a doctor. We'll see.